In this video, we will be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. So first of all, there are just a few things I want to talk about. The first thing is I have updated the province and major cities map again. Like I said last episode, I think I'm going to update this every episode. The second thing is I have made it so India and Arabia, like, they know about each other. I don't know if I said they did in the last episode, but now they do. Also, I updated the religion map. So here is the updated religion map. And there are just a few things I want to go over here. So India is its own religion. We have this new Arabian religion down here into Africa, and it has an offshoot right here. The rest of the religions just expanded, and the Chinese religion is the same. The only thing I've just forgotten to do this bit down here, but this is the same. Actually, no, this is a different religion down here, actually. I'll update that at the end of this video. But yeah, so let's get straight into this video. So first things first, we are going to be updating the trade route map. It's been a while since I've updated this layer, and I think it's finally time. So the first thing is this road had finally connected up. We also now see a road around the Black Sea fully as well. And this one goes up north into the capitals of these countries. I missed it, there we go. And this one also connects up here. This trade route now goes up further north to this country's capital, and we also see this trade route coming over here from Denmark. Now goes into Sweden and along the Swedish coast. Over here in Iberia, this trade route now goes over to these two northern cities, and down in Africa we see this one go along the coast of Carthage and into Libya. Over here we see a different network of trade routes. This one goes around the Caspian Sea, down to Mesopotamia and into the Qatar country. And this one over here goes down the Nile Basin to these countries over here. In India, we have a pretty regular trade route network. This just goes around the coast. We also have a slight shortcut that goes from the capital of this blue country to the capital of this red country. And there is currently a process to connect up these two trade route networks from the capital of the Mesopotamian country. Over here in Indonesia, we see that this country has quite a few trade route networks, even though it's only one country. You have to go across the sea to get to that one. But yeah, this one has got branched out quite a bit. Over here, this one has gone down to the coast, and we also see multiple that just go into the continent as well. And these have their own branch off. This Korean one now goes fully down the peninsula and into Japan, and it also goes over here to this Sakhalin country. So that is it for the updated trade route networks. This has been going on for a while, not just happening this episode. I could maybe also see this going across into Britain, maybe something like this. But yeah, no, that is the updated trade route networks. But now we're going to be looking at some more exploration. So these guys will further work on exploring this Persian area, which allows better connection with India. And this was kind of started after, like I said, there is a trade route network being built to connect up these guys. So yeah, we're going to see a lot more expansion of known lands into Central Asia. We also see something similar happen into Russia. And around the Indian Ocean, we see a few naval explorations go to discover the coast. And these guys don't go far. Now, over here, they decide not to go this way because, from what they know, there's no guys over here, and they only think people are this way. So this is going to kind of help these guys stay isolated. Meanwhile, over here, we're going to see more of these Indonesian islands get discovered. Now going over to, I believe this one is Flores, I believe. They also go over, and they are now nearing New Guinea. Over here we see a lot more expansion into the Mongolian area, now going over to this lake, which I don't know the name of. I'm going to Google that really quickly. Okay, it's called Lake Baikal, so yeah, at least I know that now. We will see some exploration down here into the Burmese coast, and now these guys are getting really close to meeting up with each other, but I don't think it's going to happen this episode. In Africa, after some more of the waters were mapped, we're going to see some people decide that they're going to explore down here into the mainland. They meet up with Lake Victoria, as well as Tanganyika and Malawi. And we see something like this be known. We do see some more exploration into areas like Kenya, as well as just the Ethiopian areas. And for the final bit of expansion, I think we're going to have the discovery of the Faroe Islands right here. But now we are going to be seeing some expansion. So going right back over to Sweden, they are going to successfully manage to cut off Norway as they reach this land before Norway does. And this isn't like Sweden took it and then Norway took this after. They were directly going at this. And this allows connection for Sweden to the Arctic Sea up here, which was a pretty large success for them. They will set up a border right here and they will set up a border right there, and for now they aren't really too worried about continuing to expand. However, this might make some border conflicts in the future, as Norway is still kind of moving people out to this area, which Sweden is very unhappy about, but yeah, we'll see where that goes to. Over here we see this country make a little bit of expansion. They are quite a weak country, in fact I would probably say they're one of the weakest in the world. But they do manage to make a little bit of expansion. We also see Finland do some of that as well. At this point they're not really a Finnish country, they're more like Karelia, but I'll call them Finland because their capital is in Finland. I'm also just going to fix up this border right over here. There we go, I think that looks good. So yeah, we do see a lot of expansion up there. So now we're going to be moving down to a much hotter area as we see this newly formed Egyptian country start to expand quite a bit. They move down the Nile area and they also move over into these Libyan areas over here, as a lot of people from the rest of the world are moving to this country, seeing it as quite a prosperous nation. They will also move down the Arabian coast as well into the Red Sea, and they even meet up with the Sudanese country. Now, in regards to relations, they're fine, they have no issues with each other, they are also the same religion. Now we're going to be moving back over here to the west of Africa, as we're going to see the purple team do a bit of expansion. They move just a little bit further into Africa, and they take about this much land. And now we're going to see Carthage do the same thing, but they have a lot more support from their people to do this, seeing that the purple team is kind of just trying to take as much of their land as possible. They see the purple team as a European country, not an African country, even though most of their land is in Africa. So that's interesting. Carthage will also move over here to Libya, and at this point Carthage is getting very big, so that's something to watch out for. They are quite stable, but say a few bad rulers come into power, that could easily change. But now we're going to be moving over to East Asia, where we're actually going to see our first war be happening, and I believe this is the first war of East Asia, and it's between these two Japanese states right here. So the northern Japanese state, they are just a bit weaker than this southern one, and that is because there is more people living in this southern area. You can kind of see by the provinces, although they are kind of the same size. But this northern one wants to unite Japan under their country, but the only problem with this is that both of these states are quite unstable, so a major war here could make them collapse. But these guys don't really care about that, and when they go in, well, it's just going to cause some issues, and that is going to be shown right here. We're going to see multiple breakaway states in the southern Japanese country, but not only that, we're also going to see Hokkaido break away from North Japan, and we're going to see a pretty big rebellion in the north. Now, at this point, these guys are heavily regretting their decision to do this, but they can't really go back on it now, so the fighting is going to continue. But they can't really do much because when one front pushes back, the other pushes in, so just kind of leads to a big mess. This orange rebellion kind of just pushes itself around. This pink country is gonna, this purple country is gonna move over here. And as a kind of nail in the coffin, we're going to see this Lime Rebellion also break away from this Japanese state, and it's also going to capture the capital, and with that this war is kind of just going to be over. And let's see a peace treaty. So looking at this peace treaty that was a very big pain to draw, we can see quite a few new nations have been created. I also need to get rid of this. These guys' capitals will be wherever there is a major city. And you don't have a major city, so you will have to put one of your villages as your major city, or one of your towns. And I almost forgot about you, you can have a capital right there. So yeah, we can see this creates a lot of new countries on the Japanese Isles, and these guys are ripe for the taking for the colonial powers. However, that's not really going to happen, because these guys aren't really too bothered in that. Maybe Korea is, but the rest of these guys really not. Now we're actually going to see a new nation form up, and that is going to be over at this lake right here that I just talked about a minute ago, and this is going to be the Baikar country, I guess, and they will set up here to kind of get away from this mess going on. Now they're a very sparsely populated country, however they do have quite a few ambitions of expansion, and in this process they will be exploring quite a lot of land over here. I will just give them a few major cities so they can have a capital, and their capital will be at this one right here. Now next up we are going to be going back to India because we're going to see some more expansion, and this yellow country has kind of just been blocked off from taking any more land. And the blue country will take this land, and the rose pink country I guess will take that land. Up here we see this lime team after getting pretty big on trade with the other European countries. After getting pretty big and powerful based on trade with the European and the African countries, they're actually going to be expanding quite a lot. They will take all of this land in the north, and they will even expand to the south, connecting up with that blue country right there. Over here this pink country is going to take a little bit of land in the north. And now we're actually going to be seeing a new Indian nation form. And that's actually going to be this green country right here. They're going to set up right north of the pink country. And these guys set up because they did want coastal access, however they feel it's going to be quite contested, so they are happy with setting up near the coast. They will then move over and connect up with this purple country right here, and they will be set up looking something like this. And they were right about this coast being contested, because soon after they are set up, this country, or this area rather, is split up like that. Back over to East Asia, we're going to be seeing some more land get explored. Papua New Guinea is discovered, and a lot of people are now moving over to this island, and it's looking like this Indonesian country is going to expand to claim it, which is exactly what they do. However, they're not expanding to claim this bit. They finish off Socotra and then they move up into Thailand. They also claim all of Java as well as a few of these islands next to it, and they continue their expansion into Borneo, and they will expand about this much. Back over to this country, they're going to be continuing on their expansion, now going further into Arabia, and these guys are beginning to become quite strong. They have a pretty advanced strategy for military, which makes them quite a large military power. And their borders will look something like this, with now a big foothold into Arabia. Over here to this Mesopotamian country, they will be expanding just a little bit. But now we're going to see these guys do something, and these guys, seeing this Persian land down here, they're actually going to set up a colony in Persia. They're going to set it up right here along this coast, and they attempt to connect with it best they can. However, there are some issues with controlling it based on how far away it is and it being disconnected, but they do think that they will be able to hold on to this for now, and this will give them a monopoly on this trade route which they are hoping for, and it cuts off right at the end of their country here. I didn't even plan that, but that works out well. Now we're going to be going over here to Eastern Europe, as we see a lot more expansion take place. I keep saying that when I mean exploring. And we're going to see these new countries actually take a lot of this land, specifically this green country right here. They're going to take a pretty big chunk out of this, and we're also going to see the Belarusians do the same, taking probably an even larger chunk. And I think for the final event of this video, we're going to be seeing a war happen, because why not? We love wars, so yeah, we'll have that. And that war is actually going to be one that is kind of happening because of what we just saw here. So with these two both expanding, they kind of try and encircle each other, like going around each other, and this leads to a pretty large argument which ends up being a skirmish, and we're going to see these two go to war with each other. And I'm not going to lie, both of these guys are pretty weak. They are not the strongest countries. I would say the Russians are maybe a little bit stronger because they have been here for longer and they are a little bit larger. However, at the battle of this major city, the Russians do end up losing it. The Russians kind of decide to do a reverse of this, going over to this city right here and capturing it. But at the end of the day, not really much happens, so they kind of just agree with their differences and they sign a treaty saying, we will set up a border for what we can claim and what you can claim, sort of like the Treaty of Tordesillas. It would be like a line going across, something like that. I would imagine it's more so something like this. But yeah, that treaty will be signed and that will end the war. So yeah, that war was ended pretty peacefully. Well, you can't really end a war peacefully, but yeah, that war was ended quite well diplomatically wise. And yeah, we're going to see some more exploration down the African coast. And we're going to start to see quite a few of these European powers start to get interested in this. As, you know, there could be some good land down here for them. And they do want that because currently they are blocked off, unable to claim any more territory. So they will be heavily funding some of these explorations, and they kind of stop at the Congo. They also discover these islands down here, and during this process we see some more exploration outwards, leading to the discovery of the Azores. Up north we're going to see the discovery of Iceland, and this is probably by the Norwegians, I would have to guess. And over here we see the exploration of the northern Russian coast. But there is something growing that maybe will want to push these Europeans to actually go even further around, because the Egyptian Empire, which is an empire at this point, it's starting to become heavily religious based. And it's based off of this lovely religion right here, that's outdated a little, but this red religion right here. And they kind of view other religions as lesser than them. So they're starting to become quite harsh with their trade policies, and this is important because the Indian nations over here are heavy exporters of spices towards these European nations. And with these guys becoming increasingly strong, it's cut off one of the major trade routes over to this area, which was through Egypt right here. The other one still exists through Mesopotamia into Turkey, but it's looking like it's only a matter of time before the Egyptians take over this one as well. So this is going to kind of worry the Europeans, and this is actually a very similar situation to real life, but here it's kind of being repeated, which is pretty interesting to see. So some nations are starting to think if there's any other ways that they can get around to India. And there are a lot of these nations, specifically the Galicians and the Irish. They are thinking maybe if we could sail around Africa. However, people don't really think of this one as like plausible, because they think Africa kind of just goes like this and it just goes across. So yeah, there aren't many people like thinking of that. There are some people thinking of going through Central Asia. However, it's kind of with these guys right here, they're also kind of strict on their trade policies, and you don't really want to go through the desert. So yeah, these guys are kind of in a bad situation because of this. But now we're going to be updating some layers. So the first layer we're going to be updating is the trade routes layer. I'm not sure when the last time I updated this one was, but I do want to update it now, because there are quite a few interesting things that's happened to it. So the first thing is we now have a connected trade route through the, well, not through, but underneath the Caucasus Mountains, and this trade route now goes around the Caspian Sea, and it connects up with this capital right here, and the Caspian Sea is now fully encircled with the trade route. We also see the Carthaginians attempt to build a trade route connecting to Egypt, but the Egyptians, they don't really want to do this because they feel like it would undermine their trade in the area, which, they, like I said before, they are growing. We also see, finally, the construction of this trade route connecting with this Persian colony. And over here in East Asia, we see the trade route now stretch up from the Indonesian country and move out to Vietnam. So yeah, that is the updated trade routes at the minute, but now we're going to be going on to something that I haven't done before, and that is actually going to be power rankings. So I'm sure there are some of you who are interested in this, so if you're not, I'll put a timestamp on screen to tell you where to skip to if you're not interested in the power rankings, but I'll do them right now. This is going to be the military power rankings, and it's going to be the top 10. So at number 1 military, the strongest military in the world at the minute, it's actually going to be the Greeks. They are quite strong, and while they have fallen off a little bit, they are still quite a dominant power. At number 2, we have the Egyptians. They have been consolidating their power, and they've been using the foundations that Greece has set to build themselves up as a pretty strong empire. At number 3, we have France. They are getting quite strong as well. They have been getting quite rich as well, so that's kind of helping them out a lot. At number 4, we have the Dutch. They are still quite strong. They're definitely not as strong as they used to be, but they're still quite up there. At number 5, we have, I would say number 5 could maybe it could be Ukraine. I'm looking at ones like Sweden as well. Rome as well, and Carthage. I think I'm going to give number 5 to... I think I'm going to give it to Rome. They have built themselves as a pretty strong trading empire in the Mediterranean, so that helps them out a lot there. At number 6, I think we're going to have Sweden. They are becoming very strong, and they also have quite an advanced military as well. At number 7, I think it's going to be Ukraine. At number 8, it's going to be Gibraltar. At number 9, I think it's going to be Carthage. And these guys are all quite close together. I'd say from number 4 to about number 8, these guys are all very similar. in power as well. And finally, at number 10, and the reason I'm only looking in the old world is because there's a pretty big technology difference. Of course, with more people and there being more countries in this older area, there is of course going to be more advanced technology. However, I do think that we could maybe have a new world country in here. Yeah, I think, yeah, so this is the strongest, actually. Is he? Yeah, I feel like this guy would be because he's kind of in the hub and it started out from here. So it's going to be central China. So that is going to be the 10th strongest country. So yeah, that is the military power rankings. So yeah, this will be changing. I'll try and keep on top of it like every few episodes, but for now I'm just going to turn that layer off. So now we're going to be getting to some expanding, because we haven't seen any this episode. So the first thing we're going to see is we're going to go to the Egyptians. The Egyptians are going to be continuing to expand on the North African coast, now moving over to this Libyan area. They will be exploring over to this Libyan area right here, and they will also be sending some more explorations further into the desert, taking this land right here. And in Arabia, you can kind of notice something interesting happening right here. So Mesopotamia is starting to feel quite worried about this, as they know what Egypt is trying to do here. So yeah, they're going to maybe try and build some alliances. And it's here where I introduce you to a new layer, where we will be looking at said alliances. And we are going to see Mesopotamia try and get some help from the Caspian country right here. And they're going to accept, because these guys are starting to become quite good friends. They have collaborated quite a lot on this trade route, so they are going to be creating the Circle Alliance. Why do I keep burping? But yeah, no, they're going to be creating the Circle Alliance together, and this is a defensive alliance, and it's actually the first alliance like this that we've seen. This isn't the only alliance that's going to be forming, though. We do see something else happen, and that is actually going to be an alliance up here between Norway and this country right here. These guys are both worried of Sweden expansionism, and Sweden is a lot stronger than both of these guys, so they are getting kind of worried about that, so they are going to form an alliance to protect each other. And the final alliance we will be seeing is over here in East Asia, and this is actually going to be a religious alliance, so I will symbolise that from here. This isn't technically because they have good relations or they're close, it is because they have the same religion, and I'm not going to lie, it's probably going to be only over here where we're seeing this. But now let's do what I said I was going to do and do some expanding. So, first up here, we're going to go straight to Sweden, because they are going to be doing some expansion. They're going to continue along the Arctic Sea over here, and so it's starting to look like they're going to just keep on going around here. So we're going to see this country right here, who has obviously just formed an alliance with Norway. They're going to swoop in and take a pretty big chunk of this land. Finland decides that they're going to stay out of it, so that kind of just leaves them. Down over here we see the Cape Verde country. They're going to continue their expansion down the coast of Africa, taking this pretty large chunk. Over here we're going to see this Sudanese country decide to expand down and meeting up with Somalia, which I guess I'll call this guy Somalia. And over here we see this Persian colony continue to expand. They also meet up with the Mesopotamians because of this threat right here. Speaking of this threat right here, they are going to continue their expansion, now going down the Arabian coast, just like this. And they are starting to become very strong, and the reason they are able to do this is also because of the trade coming into their country. This point right here is becoming very big, and we're even starting to see Egypt look quite threatening to Sudan right here. But now it's time for a war, because we haven't had a war in quite a bit. And it's going to be a war over here. So, the northern Chinese country and the southern Chinese country, they don't have bad relations per se, but this northern Chinese country, they have an extremely large population, shown well by the major cities here. They are at this point the most populated country in the world, and they really just need more space. So they're going to go over to this southern Chinese country, and they are going to demand a few provinces. And they're going to demand all of these provinces right here. And they say they're being generous because they still have the capital under their control, but, well, quite clearly they're not. And of course these guys are going to refuse because they do have a lot of people there and it's quite important for them. Now the reason the Chinese country is asking this guy and not this blue guy over here, which is weaker, They're not the same religion, they don't want to get caught up in that, and plus they're in an alliance with Korea. So yeah, that is why these guys are going for these guys down here. And we're actually going to see, after the Chinese country is denied, they're going to be launching an invasion. So they're going to quickly move down the coast right here, and they're also going to cross in the mainland. We do see the Parallelogram Alliance heavily fund these guys, as if you know your history from this series, you'll know that Korea broke away from this country due to them having a different religion, and also they weren't getting along well with this country. So yeah, they will be funding them. So these guys are going to quickly move down here and encircle this capital. They are going to begin the siege of it, and up north we're going to see a pretty large advance. And at this point it's kind of getting very bad for the central government, and we're going to see a few provinces decide, oh, we don't really want to get caught up in this, so we're actually going to break away. And that is going to be these group of provinces right here. They're going to declare their independence, and pretty interestingly, they're actually going to align themselves with this Indonesian religion. And a pretty large reason that these guys had declared independence is because a lot of Indonesians had moved up to this land and settled there, and it's not shown on the map, but Indonesia is a separate religion. It's sort of like similar to this off branch, but it's different in its own way. I will update that at the end of this video, so in the next video you will see an updated religion map. But yeah, that is why, and this is going to crumble these guys, and they're just going to get blasted. Whoops. They're just going to get blasted, and they lose their capital, and yeah, they're going to surrender. And this peace treaty is not going to be too kind to these guys. So taking a look at this peace treaty here, we can see that China is annexing all of this land, which is actually more provinces than they had originally asked for. Originally they didn't ask for this province, or this province. So yeah, they have been much harder on them than they would have if they accepted, but why would you accept that? Like, you're just getting screwed over if you do. Their new capital will be... They decide, actually, they're going to put their capital on Hainan Island just to make it a little bit more safe, and they begin to build up their navy after this to ensure that this can't happen again. This new country over here, their capital is going to be right here. I'm actually just going to fix this border because I feel like it doesn't make too much sense for them to be this large. I'm just going to cede over these two provinces right here. There we go, that looks a little better. Anyway, now we're going to be moving over to this country right here. It's not shown on the map, but this is its sort of own religion, and these guys are very expansionist. They come from all of these East Asian countries, and they just kind of really want to just take as much land as they can, and they're actually going to invent the bow and arrow, and you might be surprised that that's not already been invented. There are like javelins and that, but no projectile launcher has been invaded, and they're going to use this to conquer quite a few tribes, and they're even going to meet up with this lake over here. And they're also going to take the opportunity to expand into this land, and I'll just give you a warning, this is going to be a very big expansion. So yeah, we see these guys take a very large chunk of land, and they start to think, maybe if we could conquer these lands down here, we could become even stronger. So they start to do frequent raids into this country, and I might have just kind of shocked you by doing that, but to be honest, it really doesn't look like this. It more so looks like this, and this. This area isn't really owned, it's kind of just claimed, so don't think they've got people living in this whole thing. Yeah, they're probably like they're one of the strongest countries in this area. I would say this southern Chinese country, as well as the Lime team, is stronger than them, but they are stronger than countries like this guy. So yeah, they're going to be frequently raiding into this country. They also move over here and link up with the Pacific, and they are going to take a big chunk of this land, but some of it is also going to go over to this orange country. So they're going to take this chunk right here. The orange guys, they're going to take this chunk, and the Koreans are going to get this southern bit. But yeah, so these guys and these guys, they really don't like each other now, and even these guys down here, they're going to be like getting some ideas from this. Maybe we could team up with these guys who... They're the Mongols, obviously, they're the Mongol Empire here. Maybe we could team up with them and we can get some of this nice land. Maybe even get this city right here, their capital, which is actually the most populated city in all of the Asian area. Well, that was a stinky fart. Now we're going to be moving down south here to this newly released country. They are going to be expanding down the coast right here, and they're going to be setting themselves up a pretty nice area. Down with the Indonesians, they're going to continue their episode-long conquest into Borneo. This episode, they're going to take probably their largest chunk so far. It's going to be all of this land right here, and they're probably, yeah, it's probably their most land claimed in one episode. They're also going to take a lot of these islands, such as Timor, and they're going to also start a campaign into, I believe this island is called Flores, I believe. I think I mentioned it in one of the other videos as well, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself and getting it wrong. Over here to this country that kind of hasn't done anything for a while, they're going to be expanding quite a bit. And they're going to be looking like this. They take some land in the north, some in the south, and I'm going to give them this bit right here as well. And they are gaining strength, and they're also expanding south. And yeah, the strength they are gaining is from this colony. Obviously, it's becoming quite good for trade. Over here in Caucasia, we're going to see these guys continue to expand, now meeting up with the Anatolian/Turkish country. But now we're going to see another war break out. So, this light green country, this guy hasn't really done anything. It formed from the remnants of the light blue team. And ever since then, they've kind of just sat around and done nothing. And this pink country, they are, well, they're kind of mad about the land they lost. So they're going to be launching an invasion into the nation, hoping to gain some land. And it's going really great for them. They managed to break into the country, and they're moving up to this capital. These guys, they will push back. They are strong, but not as strong as these guys. They are a landlocked country, one of the only ones in Europe, actually. And while they are big, they're not very strong. This city will be captured, but right after it is, we're going to see something very unfortunate happen for these guys. And that is the Greeks will move in on the southern border, hoping to gain some land. And yeah, this is not going to go well for them, as the Greeks managed to capture their capital. The Greeks are looking to regain some of the strength that they had lost, and, well, yeah, this is going to kind of work. We're also going to see the Ukrainians even get in on this, making some land gains right here. And the weak little green team is going to manage to recapture their major city. And it turns out they might not be too weak at all, as they capture the major city of the pink team. And, yeah, this is just going to kind of lead to the surrender of this country. So, yeah. So, let's have a look at this peace treaty. So in this peace treaty here, we can see that the pink team has been completely divided up. The Greeks managed to gain a very good deal with this, as they were the ones that captured the capital of the country, so they will be taking all of this land right here. The green team will be taking this land right here, and the Ukrainians will be taking this land right here, and we can get rid of that capital. So yeah, there goes the pink team. Quite an old country, but unfortunately for it, its neighbours were quite expansionist. Now we're going to be moving over to the yellow team up north. Now, the yellow team, they were suffering from quite a lot of instability not too long ago. However, now they have actually built themselves up, and they decided that they're going to construct a few more of these major cities. And this is because their population is growing, and they are looking to maybe expand again. And they have become quite strong, so they're going to be going, and they're going to be going after one of their weak neighbours. And that neighbour is, of course, going to be the Estonians / the Baltics. So, the yellow team will cross the border, and they will immediately see success managing to capture this major city right here. They will also continue along this border, and yeah, it's looking very good for them. They will kind of move around this coast. However, we do see an issue for them, and that is that they launched this invasion quite late on in the year, and these guys are quite good at fighting in the cold, so we see some guerrilla warfare happening, allowing some pushbacks into the country, or their claims, so they are kind of forced to retreat back just a little bit. They hold on to this major city, and they kind of hold off this front line until the next summer, which is going to be in a few months. Now, looking down here, these guys are going to kind of see an opportunity here. However, they're not going to take it because they are kind of happy with the position they're in at the moment. They don't really want to gain any land. However, some of this yellow team land, like I said, it is becoming quite, not necessarily rich, but quite prosperous land. So we could maybe see something happening there. But now it's summer again, and the yellow team is going to continue their push in. But as it looks like the yellow team is about to capture the capital, we see something very bad happening. Sweden, who is, they're kind of out of land to gain up here, they're going to be looking to gain some more. in a not only a better position but also an unclaimed position. So yeah, they're going to be going after this guy, and I'm going to cut it short. These guys are going to get pummeled. They make a landing in this major city and it just surrenders immediately. Like, they see Swedish ships coming to their country and they're just like, no. So this big chunk comes right here, and at the battle of this major city, Sweden decisively wins, and now they're even approaching the capital. This allows just a complete pushback on the Baltic side country. What? This allows a complete pushback by the Baltic country, and they are able to move into the yellow team. And unfortunately for the yellow team, they are falling at this point. They are really not doing too good. And the Swedes capture their capital, and after a little bit more fighting, we're going to see the yellow team surrender. So looking at this peace treaty here, we can see that, yeah, it's really not gone too well for the yellow team. They have been heavily reduced in land size, and they've also been weakened. And a pretty interesting side aspect of this war is that we're actually going to see Sweden setting up an alliance, and that is going to be the Star Alliance. And this is sort of a counter to the Triangle Alliance up here, but it's also because they have just gained the new ally of the Baltic country. We're also going to see Finland look at this alliance. They're going to be like, maybe, but they do want to stay out of it for now. But yeah, no, this is looking up for the Swedish at this point. And the final event of this video, because I've been recording for half an hour now, is we're going to see, it's actually going to be quite a major thing that we're going to see happening. And that is actually going to be the first colony being set up in Africa. So the Galicians will be moving down, and in their attempt of maybe looking like we can go to India around Africa, they're actually going to be setting up a few outposts. We're going to see one be set up in Nigeria, and we're going to be see one set up over here on the Gold Coast. And after this happens, we're going to see a few more nations decide to do this as well. Specifically the French, they're going to do one right here. This is going to be a pretty small one, but at least they have it. And also we're going to have the, who else? We're going to have the English country. They're going to set up a pretty small one over here as well. And we are going to be seeing a little bit more of this land be explored as they continue to move around the African coast. So we're going to be beginning off this video with our daily Indonesian conquest. It is in this episode where they're finally going to be finishing their colonization of Borneo. This has been going on for, I believe, 4 episodes. They will also take all of this island right here, and they continue moving up into Southeast Asia, now actually leaving this little peninsula panhandle thingy. Furthermore, we see them begin their, conquest of Papua New Guinea, although there's no one living here. They will take this southern island right here, and we also see the Taiwanese country take some more islands out of the Philippines. They have been not doing anything for a while, and they are now finally ready to continue their expansion. Moving up north to this Vietnamese country, we see them take a little bit of land into the jungles, and they also continue their expansion southward, taking this much land right here, and I guess we could just see them expand in a little bit as well. Next up, we're going to see this Chinese country do a bit of expansion. I believe it might have been last episode we saw them invade this country to gain some land, and this is about the only land left that they can gain, so they will take it right here. And now they're kind of just completely blocked off, because this area beyond here is kind of just a desert, and they don't really feel like expanding into there. But now we're going to be moving over to Europe, and we're going to see our last expansion for a little bit before we actually see a war happening. And it's going to be in this land right here. So the Egyptians, the Anatolians, and the Caucasians are going to come together to divide up this land, as they all 3 of them want to go into it. And I already drew this up earlier. So this is the compromise they come to. The Egyptians gain all of this land down here, the Turks gain this land up here, and the Caucasians gain this land right here. Just shortly after this, we see the Egyptians continue their expansion into the Sahara, taking this chunk of land right here, and now the Sudanese are starting to feel very threatened by them, as expansion on their border as well as military on their border. It's making them quite worried. But now we're going to be seeing a war happening, and it's actually going to be a pretty large war, in fact. So over in the green team, we see a lot of riots break out, and this is sort of similar to what we saw with this beige country over here. When this country was set up in the remnants of the light blue team, it was kind of too big to exist, but not at the time as there wasn't many people living there. But now with continued population growth and just people moving to this country, it's now become too unstable to continue. Multiple different groups are wanting to break away from this thing, and when it hits the population of 15 million people, we see many revolts break out as southern lords feel that they could take power for themselves, and that is exactly what they're going to do. So over here we see this dark purple country pop up, and this is sort of started in this major city right here, and it continues on, and we also see some more riots in this newly occupied area from the former pink team, and it's becoming a pretty major issue for these guys. To make things even worse, we see a pretty big riot take out in a town just north of the capital, and this causes very big threat to the capital of the country, and this is going to allow a lot of these areas to kind of just fall under the influence of this guy, as we also see a big retreat down here. This demoralizes the army of the green team, and it kind of leads to some more people rising up with these groups. This blue one over here will continue onwards, and it's now looking like they're going to encircle this major city right here. We see this dark purple country continue up north, however now it's kind of being stood still, as these guys can't really continue on. We do see a pretty large military presence here to stop them. Up north, however, this blue team, it's going to continue onwards. This is the higher populated area. This is the rebellion with a higher population, and yeah, it's just going to... And this country manages to fully finish their encirclement right here and captures this major city. This is going to allow a continued push until the capital of the light green team is underway, and it is actually going to be fully surrounded. We then see this purple team finally make a breakthrough of the front lines, blitzing straight towards this major city right here and managing to capture it, and after this the green team is going to surrender. So in this peace treaty here we can see that the green team's been heavily screwed over. So first off, this purple country is going to get their independence, and they're going to set themselves up down here with this capital city, and they set themselves up as actually a pretty stable nation. They are also a democratic country, and we'll get back to that in a minute because there's a new layer I want to add to show this. Up north we see this light blue country take over the former capital of the light green team, and it's actually where they set up their capital, and this leaves the light green team right here. And yeah, they've been just absolutely wrecked from this war. Another thing to add is the government of the green team was replaced when the two powers invaded. It's actually making it a sort of interesting dynamic where both of these countries are fighting over influence for this middle country, as they both have like a claim to influence it due to them beating it in the war. Moving away from this, but not away from invasions, we're actually going to see something happening that someone has planned for a while. And that is of course going to be the Egyptian country. So the Egyptians, they're going to send an ultimatum to Sudan. They demand about this much land as well as full control of all of their ports. Of course, now this is a really bad situation for Sudan, because if they were to accept Egypt's ultimatum, they were just going to collapse anyway. It would heavily weaken them to such an extent they wouldn't be able to make much money anymore. So they were kind of stuck either way, so they just decided to go down with a fight. So they will be refusing the Egyptian ultimatum, which the Egyptians were kind of expecting, and yeah, this is going to lead to an invasion. So immediately we see the Egyptian navy in the Red Sea mobilised, and quickly moves down to bombard the capital with cannon fire. This is accompanied by a full-scale land invasion from the north, quickly capturing the two major cities of the Sudanese country. These are the only two major cities the country has. We also see a landing take place right down here, and this encircles the capital of the Sudanese country. And yeah, from here the country just completely falls. So in this peace treaty here we can see that the Sudanese country has been absolutely destroyed. They lose all of their coastal land as well as this northern land except for their major city province, and this completely just destroys the economy of the country, and this thing might not be sticking around for too much longer. But now we're going to be moving away from the old world and back over to the new world, because we're going to be seeing some exploration take place. Mostly done by the Mongolians, but also by these Chinese countries. We see a big exploration of the Gobi Desert all the way down here to the Himalayan mountains, which is kind of a natural buffer between them and these Indian states. We also see some exploration into Russia, but not that much. And yeah, now these countries are getting ridiculously close to meeting up with each other. Continuing on with their ideals of rapid expansion, we're going to see the Mongolians claim a very large portion of this land. So the Mongolians will be taking all of this land, as well as now becoming increasingly hostile to this brown country, who they are continuing their raids into. These guys are fundamentally expansionist, and they really want to just conquer as much land as they can, and with these countries kind of blocking them off, they're thinking about continuing eastwards, as they don't believe there's any countries over here. Now, moving down to these Indian states, we're going to be seeing them claim a little bit of land, and this kind of just fully takes over the Indian peninsula / subcontinent. The blue team gets this land right here, and the rest of this land is split between this lime country and this green country. Now, there is a pretty big struggle for power in the Indian subcontinent. These three countries are the main three. These are the three most powerful countries. The strongest at the minute is heavily debated between these two. It's just barely this one. However, with trade coming to this one, it's really heavily boosting them, and they are becoming rapidly stronger than the rest of these countries. And this guy is kind of... they're strong because they have a lot of influence over these two guys right here. But that is the dynamic there. But now we're going to be seeing a big war take place before we see some more colonization. So over here in the Gibraltar country, so as we know from previous episodes, the Gibraltar country, they treat this as a colony. They do not treat it as their mainland, despite it being more in this... despite them being more of an African country than a European country, as more of their land is in here. The purple team decides that they are going to tax the hell out of this colony, and it's really not going to go well for them, as even more uprisings take place. There had already been uprisings in this country due to it being mistreated, but this is just going to go the next step, and uprisings funded by 3 other countries are going to take place. So these are fundings of these Moroccan rebellions right here, and these are in support of joining up with this country right here, who they see as their, I guess, true peoples. Taking a look at the religion map, we can see that the Moroccans are the same religion as this purple country. It's an offshoot of the blue religion. So these guys are going to quickly consolidate up. And at this point, we actually see the Moroccan country, or the Canary country, fully go into this war. They are now directly sending military into the purple team, and the purple team is now mobilising their military to fight back. They will quickly push down. However, this is going to cause the Carthaginians to demand that they stop, saying that these guys deserve their autonomy. And this is going to absolutely infuriate the leader of Gibraltar, and he is actually going to declare war on Carthage, which is unexpected. Carthage had no idea that that was going to happen. These guys will quickly move into Carthage, but they were going to be pretty quickly stopped at this major city, because not only was the Carthaginians, they weren't prepared for this, but the army of the Gibraltar country wasn't prepared for this either. And this is actually going to have a negative effect, being the fact that now they're at war with quite a strong nation over here, a nation almost as strong as them themselves, but this also allows the Moroccans to push back. They recapture this major city right here, which I believe they had, and they now kind of just push into the desert using some guerrilla warfare tactics. This creates a pretty bad logistical situation for these troops, who are kind of forced to retreat out of this area, and this is followed by a massive Carthaginian assault straight into the Gibraltar country. These two blue guys will then work together to move into Gibraltar, now moving up to this major city right here, where they are kind of stopped. However, it is at this point where this salmon country, they are also threatening to join in on this war. They had previously broke away, but now even more areas of the purple team are in support of joining up with this country, and combined with this, when this city falls, this is just going to lead to a overthrow of the government, leading to another republic being established in the purple country, and this government will sign peace with these guys. So let's take a look at this peace treaty. So in this peace treaty here, we can see that the Moroccans and the Carthaginians have taken land, and the purple team has been absolutely blasted. They have been heavily weakened by this. The Moroccans will be moving their capital to this city right here, almost exactly where Casablanca is in real life, I believe. And the second part of this treaty, we see something new coming out of this, and that is going to be an alliance forming between the Moroccans and the Carthaginians, and that is going to be the Square Alliance. This is the first African alliance, and these guys share good relations, not only on the hatred of these guys, it's not really hatred anymore because it's a new government, but they also have a lot of good trading relations, especially with these guys now being very important for these European nations to connect down to their colonies right here, but also with Carthage being a very large naval power in the Mediterranean. This obviously leads to a lot of trade in their country. But now we're going to be seeing a new layer forming up, and that is actually going to be an ideologies layer. Now, this is something I have seen in the comments, and I thought it was about time to implement this in, so we're going to be looking at just that. So, obviously it's going to be represented by a circle on top of the country, so I'm just really quickly going to go around and add a circle for every single country. I'll be right back when I'm done with that. So here are all the bubbles completed, and we're going to have a quick dive through this just to go over some of the aspects of it. So, first off, I just want to tell you what the different colours mean. Most of them are probably recognisable, but some of them might be different. So, first of all, the blue countries, these are democracies. There are no flawed democracies, they are all proper democracies. There are currently 7 democratic nations, I believe, and these only exist over here in Europe. And an interesting kind of dynamic I wanted to show in Europe is the further west you go, the lesser authoritarian the countries are, and the further east you go is the opposite. Next up, we have the purple countries. These are constitutional monarchies. So this is basically where you have a king or a royal family, but you also have a form of parliament that gets to make some or all decisions. The only country that has a parliament that makes all decisions is the Galician country. The rest of them is the monarch still has quite a lot of power in the country. I just want to go over this. The reason that this Finnish puppet state is a democracy is because the Finnish king, an absolute monarchy in Finland, he controls this country, but this country also has a parliament, which is why it's shown as a democracy. Next up, we have absolute monarchy. So this is a country where the royal family has full power, there is no parliament, but it's not a dictatorship because it is a line of succession. A dictatorship is kind of a military leader or such who comes to power in this context here. That also, goes over dictatorships as well. There are a few dictatorships, most of them are located here in East Asia. We have a lot on Japan. And I believe the final one to go over is a religious-based government. So this only exists with these 2 Chinese countries right here, but this is where the government is sort of formed and based around the religion. You know, the government follows the ideals of the religion. If that calls for a king or whatever, they will follow it. Of course, this is for this lime religion right here, and this is for this offshoot of the gold religion. But yeah, that is it for the ideologies layer. And the last thing I want to do is a little bit more expansion, and we might be seeing the build up to something. So that is just going to be the Egyptians will take a little bit more Arabian land, and I think we'll see the Qatar country do the same, taking a little bit more Arabian land right here. And we're going to see one more event in this video, I think, before we see a build up to something. And that's actually going to be the discovery of Greenland. So we have some Swedish sailors getting lost over here in Iceland, and they actually discover Greenland, and with a pretty big dose of luck they managed to actually make their way back to Iceland after this. And even though they don't really know what's going on here, Sweden is going to set up a pretty notable colony right here in Iceland. But now, not really moving away from Sweden, we have to talk about something that's just happened. So, Sweden is going to continue expanding into the Scandinavian/Nordic area right up here, but then we have something pretty interesting happening on the border of this country. As we know, this is the Triangle Alliance between these guys and the Norwegian Green Team, and a pretty big border skirmish takes place right here, as both of these guys are sick of each other claiming over land that they also want to take. And this is actually going to lead to a war taking place. But that is actually going to be it for this video. We'll be covering that war at the very beginning of next episode. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. There is just something really quickly I want to mention about, and that is going to be names of countries. So, I don't have names for any of these countries. I usually just call them like where they are based on location. So I call these guys like Rome, I call these guys the Dutch, I call this guy like the Purple Team or Gibraltar, I would call this guy the Gold Team. So if you do want to suggest names, feel free to in the comments. I'd be very happy to take in name suggestions, and because I don't really have any at the minute, that would be perfect for me. So if you do want to pick the name of a country, feel free to leave it below in the comments. So the first event of this video that we're going to be seeing is something that happened at the end of last episode, and that is a war taking place between the Triangle and the Star Alliance. So a border skirmish had taken place over here when Sweden and this northern Finnish country were both trying to take some land out of this place. I guess this would be Lapland. And yeah, this leads to a full-on skirmish, and the Triangle Alliance is going to declare war on Sweden. So with the Triangle Alliance kind of having the upper hand here, as well as Norway already planning for this, Norwegian forces are going to quickly move into Sweden, managing to siege this major city right here, as well as capturing this one. Up here it's sort of the same. We see this guy take a little bit of land. However, the Swedish military is kind of already up here to take some land. However, the Swedish military was kind of already up here to get this land right here, so it won't be long before it's pushed back. Up north, we see Swedish special forces cross into Norway, taking all of this like northern land up here. This had been a goal of the Swedish, which kind of led to the race to cut each other off. So yeah, the Swedish were definitely prepared for that, and this is a big threat to Norway as they have kind of just lost a lot of their land. However, this land isn't very important. Moving over here, we see this guy get absolutely crushed as the Swedish forces move into this country. And to add on to this, we now see Baltic troops arrive in Sweden, and this helps liberate this city right here, or complete the siege with a Norwegian loss, and this city right here is recaptured. After this, we kind of just see a full-on assault into Norway, as this major city up here is captured, and they are now storming down into the country. Back over here to Lapland, we see their second major city be captured, and at this point a kind of stalemate takes place as it's getting very cold up here, and both of these guys are good at fighting in the cold, so it kind of just leads to some sort of stalemate happening. But back down south in Norway, it's not as cold down here, and this allows for the encirclement of this major city right here, and now Swedish forces are on the doorstep of the capital of Norway. They will complete an encirclement of the city, which is quite ambitious, and we see roughly 20,000 Norwegian troops be encircled up here. From here, this major city is captured, leaving another 10,000 Norwegian troops to be encircled, and here the capital of Norway falls, and this also causes Lapland to surrender. So that was a pretty short war actually. We really see the strength of Sweden right here, and after this war I'm going to do power rankings as well, but first let's have a look at this peace treaty. So in this peace treaty here, we can see the great expansion of Sweden. They take all of this Norwegian land right here, and these islands, and they take these two major cities from Lapland as well, and this is a great expansion for Sweden. To add on to this, it's also said that these guys can now no longer claim any more of this unclaimed land up here, the Lapland country, and Sweden is going to add on to this by blocking them off, so now they can't even do that if they wanted to. But now, like I said, we're going to be having a look at the power rankings, because this war has kind of been a pretty big boost to Sweden. I'm going to keep this one here for now, just to kind of help me with it. But at number 1, it's going to be the Egyptians. The Egyptians have built themselves up with their military, and they've also been growing in size. We saw last episode them invade this Sudanese country, and they also heavily grew, taking a lot of this Arabian land. At number 2, it is going to be... At number 2, it's going to be Greece. Despite the fact that they are falling off and now France is getting increasingly closer to their power level, they have still managed to maintain the number 2 spot, and of course this means France is going to be number 3. At number 4, it is going to be Sweden. As I have said, that war did heavily boost their strength, and plus they have their ally of the Baltic country right here, who is also boosting them. At number 5, we have Carthage. They have continued to grow with their strength, increasing their trade, and of course they also took this land from Gibraltar in the last episode. At number 6, and this is actually going to be a pretty surprising one, it is actually the Mongol country. And this is quite surprising because the technology of these old world countries is a lot higher up than these new world countries, except for the Mongols. The Mongols are actually one of the most technologically advanced, if not probably they are the most technologically advanced of the East Asian countries, and this allows them to be higher up on the power rankings. They are a similar strength to Carthage, but I have a feeling that's going to change soon. At number 7, it is going to be Rome. They are still a strong country, similar to Carthage, and they are Carthage, they are a trading power, and unlike sort of what we saw in real life, these two are actually pretty good trading partners. They share nice relations with each other, and they're not hostile with each other at all. At number 8 we have Ukraine. At number 9 we have the Dutch. They have fallen off quite heavily. And finally at number 10 it's actually going to be Indonesia. They take over the central Chinese country in power rankings, as their military has now surpassed it in technology. So these are the new power rankings, so I'm going to cut off these old power rankings, and these new ones are right here. But moving away from that, we're going to be moving right on to another war. But now we are going to be going over to Japan, because we're going to be doing our daily Japan update. So, as we know, the original countries on here were this dark red country and this beige country. These guys collapsed when they went to war with each other, and we see a few of these countries kind of wanting to reform the greatness of their once countries. Specifically this orange country right here, which is the strongest one at the minute on the Japanese Isles, just barely ahead of this red one. They are going to be going up north, and they are going to be launching an invasion of this country, this lime country right here. So, they start off the war by annexing this island right here, hoping that the Lime team won't do anything. This island has strategic importance, it's quite a big trading hub. It's sort of where these East Asian countries kind of go first before exporting their goods out to Japan. And it's good because it doesn't allow raiders from the mainland to come, because it's like, sort of, the police force, I guess, on there is better. But the Lime team, of course, is going to respond to this by declaring war on the Orange team, because obviously this is an invasion, and they also value this island highly. So, using their strength that they have from trading, the Lime country is going to invade into the Orange country, but as I have just said, the Orange country is slightly stronger, so they manage to repel this advance, as well as making a landing right here. This causes threat of encirclement to these troops, so they are forced to retreat. To make things even worse for this guy, we see the light country up here decide to move in as their capital is under threat. Now, normally these guys would be stronger than the beige country, however, as we can see, they're distracted. So, the beige country hops on the opportunity to take it, and the orange country will then continue the invasion. So, in this peace treaty here, we can see that the orange country is kind of putting some weight on. They take all of this land right here, and this kind of makes them a little unstable, as these guys kind of identified as that lime country. But also it kind of raises tensions with this light coloured country up here, because they didn't really get that much land, they only got the capital province. Speaking of the capital province, they kind of make the decision to move their capital over to here, because this is not a major city, this is just a town. You can kind of tell by the fact it's not on a province. But yeah, so that is going to be the Daily Japan update for today. But that is actually not going to be the only Daily Japan update for today, because after I update this, we're going to see something else happening over here. So this North Hokkaido country, they have been building up their military and navy, and now they are finally ready to conduct a project that they have been working on, and that is to gain full control of Hokkaido. They want to get rid of the Sakhalin country's colony right up here, and now with their navy and army, they believe that they can invade this land and then hold off these guys from retaking it. So, they will launch an invasion and quickly take over it, and their plan actually works, because when the Sakhalin country tries to come down and make a landing, and this actually works because when we see the Sakhalin country move down to the North Hokkaido country, we actually see them manage to hold off with their navy, and we see a pretty decisive defeat on the part of the Sakhalin country, and this forces them to grant this province to Hokkaido, and they have successfully united the island. But now we're going to be seeing a lot more exploration happening. So, first in Africa, we see these European nations continue their exploration of sub-Saharan Africa, now moving over here into the more central parts of Africa. We also see them continue over the African coast, however now they're getting very far across, and they kind of want to set up some settlements over here on the coast before they continue. Over here we see the Indian countries kind of do something. They explore further into the Indian Ocean, and they actually manage to discover quite a lot of these islands. But then something pretty major happens. The Mongolians, on their expansive quest, they're going to continue to explore land westward, and they sort of get to a point where they're thinking there's no countries over here. However, as they continue going on, they eventually meet up with some strange people. However, eventually, after a lot of continued expansion, they go into a place that they are unfamiliar with, and they see some people here. At first, they think it's just tribespeople. However, when they continue going, to the surprise of a lot of locals here, they actually see a pretty major city. And when they arrive to ask the locals what is going on, the locals are gonna do something pretty interesting. These locals, seeing these very odd people that they've never heard of before, they have a completely different language, they mistake them for invaders. So the Caspian country, they're going to kill these expeditionary forces, and Mongolia, after receiving word of this, is going to be very angry. They don't believe it's a misunderstanding. It is a misunderstanding because, from what these guys know, exploration groups never have actual militaries with them, but the Mongolians do it differently. So we're going to see an act of war take place here, and the Mongolians are going to respond to this by continuing to claim land, now moving over to this Caspian country right here, and they are going to be launching an invasion of this nation. So the Mongolians will quickly move in and take this city, and of course these guys, if you know the last episodes, you'll know that these guys are the inventors of the bow and arrow, and it kind of confuses these people because they have no idea what's going on. They are quick to mobilize their military, and these guys kind of inform the rest of the old world about what's going on. These guys are very confused. They did not think there was any people over to the west. So we see some diplomats from these countries move over here to try and reason with the Mongolians, and the diplomats arrive in this city. The Mongolians are willing to talk. We see some interpreters move into this city as well to kind of allow these guys to understand their language, and at this point the old world kind of finds out about what's going on over here. However, with it being a historical point, and religion still is obviously very prevalent at this time, we see the Mongolians understanding that they don't have the same religious practices as them. And, well, to put it shortly, this isn't going to lead to a very nice response from the Mongolians. These people over here, they are very religious focused, and they don't like the fact that there are other places without religion. This also created bad relations between the Mongolians and the Lime team down here, but it's going to lead to the Mongolians killing all of the diplomats in this city and continuing on their invasion. They now believe that God sent them on this quest westward to cleanse these people from their false religion, which, mental honestly. But the Mongolians will continue their invasion in, and now we see a lot of forces from these other European countries now kind of come in to help. However, the Mongolian forces completely outnumber them and manage to cut the country in two. We also see the bow and arrow continue to come in useful, although now the Europeans have kind of replicated the technology. And this is going to lead the start of the Mongolian conquests, because now that the Mongolians know that there are other countries up here, they want to continue their quest to cleanse the religion of these people, and this is not going to go well for these Europeans, as we kind of see the size of the Mongol army really decides the battle here. The Mongolians will eventually completely wipe out this country, and in the peace treaty they're actually going to be fully annexing it. And in the peace treaty these guys are fully annexed. Now this is going to come to great concern to a lot of these countries, as a different religious people are now coming into their area, and they know that their ambitions are to cleanse their religion, that's their words, and this is going to lead to some brewing up of something happening right here. But for now, the Mongolians are going to continue on their rampage, taking over a lot of tribes in this area. And by the way, these Caspians had fled down to their colony down here, and their capital will be right here. This isn't the only instance where we see two sides meeting up with each other, as Indonesian explorers now move up this coast, and they meet up with these Indian peoples, and the response here is very different, as we can see from the religion map right here. These guys are a completely different religion, and these guys get along very well with each other. They quickly become good trading partners. This also leads to something like this happening. Also, with the Mongols and the stuff going on here, word reaches to these other nations, and they have a very different attitude to the Mongols. As we can see, the Mongols are their separate branch of this gold religion. These guys would obviously like if these countries were their religion, however, they kind of see it as not their business as of how far away they are, and they kind of don't support the Mongols anyway. They have had bad relations in the past, so these guys are going to be relatively peaceful. It's only really the Mongols who have a very negative view of this religion, and we're going to see this continue on in a few episodes, as we're going to see the Mongolians try and maybe force the hand of these countries into changing to their religion. The last thing the Mongols are going to do this episode is make a pretty big advance into this northern area of Russia right here. And the reason they're able to do this is a good setup of their government, similar to what we see in real life with the Mongolian Empire. But now we're going to be moving away from that. We're going to be looking at a little bit more expansion for countries, and that is going to be over here in Africa. So this Somalian country, which is probably one of the most disconnected in the whole world, they are going to continue their expansion, now taking this land. But now we're going to be seeing someone else doing some expansion, and that is going to be these Europeans right here. they will be continuing to set up some more colonies, with now even a new country joining in on the fun. That is of course going to be the Gibraltar country right here. Not only that, but also the Irish country. They will set up a one of the closer colonies, and it's going to be right over here. And this will kind of continue to fuel their exploration southward. Now moving back over to Egypt. And in that Mongolian war, I didn't mention, but these guys were directly involved as they are in an alliance. They are still in an alliance together. Just thought I'd update that. But now, moving over to Egypt, we're going to see them continue to do some expansion. They move over here to the border of Carthage, which is rather concerning for Carthage, as Carthage does know about what these guys have been doing in the past. They will also move a little bit further into Africa, as well as into Arabia even more, now sort of getting close to this Qatar country. And a lot of these countries around Egypt are becoming very concerned seeing the expansion of the nation, and this is actually going to lead to something happening. We're going to be seeing an anti-Egyptian alliance form. But now, seeing how much Egypt is expanding, we're actually going to be seeing an anti-Egyptian alliance form up. And that is going to consist of this Turkish country right here, this Caucasian country right here. These guys had actually worked together in a deal before, but the relations have broken down. This Sudanese country right here, which had been absolutely blasted by the Egyptians, I think, last episode. This Qatar country right here. And a kind of betrayal happening. The Mesopotamians leave the Circle Alliance, seeing it as not strong enough to defend them against Egypt, and in favour they're going to be joining the anti-Egyptian alliance. And this is going to disband the Circle Alliance like that. So with this alliance forming, it kind of screws over Egypt, who is now kind of more looking over here westward. But now we're going to be moving over to India, where we're going to be seeing a war happening. So this blue country and this rose country, they have been battling for a lot of influence in the subcontinent, and it's finally going to lead to a war. Rising tensions take place, and the breaking point is when the rose country converts into a dictatorship. This kind of gives justification for the blue country to invade them, seeing them as being sort of a radical country, and the people of the blue team are in support of this, going to get some land and freeing people from a dictator. So the blue team is quickly going to move into the nation, and they are now moving towards this major city. The blue team is just barely stronger than the rose-pink team, so it's not going to go all well for them, as we do see a sort of defence being set up in the north, but also a pushback. Over here, this major city does actually fall, and now they are cut off in the coast, and this actually encircles a pretty large reserve force that was set up just in case this gold country tried to do anything funny. And this is going to be very bad for the rose country, as approximately 10,000 troops were down here. So this is going to lead to a continued fall of the rose country, and we actually see the dictator kind of be overthrown, and they're not going to surrender, but when the major city is captured, they do surrender, which the dictator wouldn't have done. So let's take a look at this peace treaty. So taking a look at this peace treaty here, we can see that the blue team has heavily expanded. They now meet up with this part of the Indian Ocean here, which is a pretty big morale boost for them. I guess it really shows the strength of their monarchy. And of course, this is going to heavily weaken the Rose Country. And the final event of this video is just going to be some good old exploration / expansion. So up here, the Swedish are going to continue their exploration quests up north, and they now discover Svalbard, and to add on to this, they will also be discovering more of Greenland. More of this area over here will be discovered by the Mongolians, and I think lastly we're going to see the Indonesians discover more of Papua New Guinea. So the first event of this video is going to be our daily Japan update, because there's going to be some other important stuff that's going to be happening after, so I just want to get this out of the way at the start. So, the beige-coloured country, they're going to be continuing their shenanigans. They are still kind of sad that they lost their old strength, so they're going to be going after the weakest Japanese country, and that's going to be this blue team right up here. This country only really formed because of the rest of it was collapsing, so they were kind of distracted, and now that they're not distracted, they are going to easily take over this country, and yeah, that is that country completely gone off the map. And the second daily Japan update we're going to be having, because I like to do two of them because that's kind of just small, it's not really an update, but this Hokkaido country is going to be discovering the rest of this coral island chain, so they'll be colonising that one and discovering up here to Siberia. Next up, over here, we're going to be having the Indonesians continuing their expansion. These guys are starting to become very strong, and now that they have met up with these Indian countries, they are becoming increasingly strong and rich due to their trading. And yeah, it's going very well for them, so they're now going to start their colonisation of Papua New Guinea, I imagine this would be similar to their colonization of Borneo, where it's going to take place over multiple episodes. We also see a treaty be set up between the Indonesian country and Taiwan, and that is for a division of the Indonesian islands. So, Papua New Guinea islands rather. So Indonesia gets these islands down here, and Taiwan gets these ones. Actually, I'm going to give this one to the Philippines as well. Why do I keep calling it the Philippines? And to go along with this, we're going to see the discovery of Bougainville, and just a little bit more of this ocean is going to be mapped out, including some of these Pacific islands, just like this. But now we are going to be seeing a pretty big war happening. So, in the last episode, we saw this anti-Egyptian alliance form up, and this is to kind of combat the Egyptians' expansion. They are becoming extremely strong. If we are looking at the power rankings right here, these are outdated. I'm going to update them this episode. But we can see that Egypt is the strongest country. I'm not sure if they are anymore. I'll have to look at that in a second. But these guys united because they are very scared of Egypt. So Egypt is going to be looking elsewhere to expand, and they think they have a perfect target. And of course, that is going to be Greece. So, the Egyptians are going to be declaring war on Greece. Their reason is land, lovely reason. And for those of you who know the history of this WICSO, you'll know that Egypt used to be a colony of Greece, but they broke away due to them being mistreated, and that was partly due to Greece becoming a dictatorship. So the Egyptians, aiming to now have influence over some of the other parts of the Mediterranean, they're going to launch an invasion of Cyprus, then Crete, and then they're going to launch their full-on invasion of Greece. They land in southern Anatolia and take 2 major cities in their first week of invading. They then encircle some of these Greek forces over here, and they continue up the land. However, something to note about Egypt, while they do have a very strong military, they don't exactly have the strongest navy, and when the Greek navy is mobilised, we actually see something pretty interesting happen, and that is Greece actually manages to retake Cyprus. Greece completely bombards the island with their superior navy, and we also see something similar happen to this island over here. And when the Egyptians try and launch an invasion of this southern Greek island, it goes very terribly for them. They are kind of just completely surrounded by the Greek navy as well, sort of what happened over here. And this kind of shows that the Greeks are still powerful. The Egyptians are now going to focus all of their efforts on Anatolia, and they quickly capture this major city, and they're now moving up north to Constantinople, this city right here. Pretty major city for the Greeks, especially for trade. If they were to lose that, very bad side effects would happen. This land over here is then encircled, and all of this land over here is taken. From here, the Egyptians then move towards Constantinople and are now entering the gates of the city. But now we're going to be seeing something pretty interesting happening. So, seeing how Egypt is becoming increasingly strong and now is even looking like they're going to be defeating Greece, we see the anti-Egyptian alliance send over an ultimatum to Egypt. And this is of course because they don't want them to become increasingly strong, which could threaten them. And this demands that they retreat all forces from Greece and maybe even pay some reparations to Greece. Now, this is going to infuriate the leader of Greece. The Greek king is going to get this message, and he's going to literally set it on fire. And then he kind of does something really stupid. He goes over to Sudan, where the capital is kind of surrounded, and he just blows up the city. Like, he goes in there, invades it, and just completely destroys the city. This kind of from his complete anger from receiving this ultimatum. And this is, of course, going to lead to a war. So, the Diamond Anti-Egyptian Alliance is going to be declaring war on Egypt. So, to start off with, as soon as these Egyptian forces up here get word of this, they start invading straight away into Turkey. They capture this major city right here. This actually does give the Greeks a little bit of a surprise advantage. They manage to retake some of these areas over here, however they are kind of stopped and then pushed back to this little peninsula here. Down over here in Sudan we see the country get completely crushed. However, when this country does surrender, a lot of guerrilla fighters do stay around in the desert. This kind of makes it hard for Egypt to occupy the area, so they have to send a lot of troops here. Now we're going to see Egypt's main offensive in this war, and that is going to be the invasion of Anatolia. So moving up south and around the coast, we see this Syrian area quickly fall, and this major city, which is quite important for Turkey, is captured. And we also see this meet up. We then see Egypt launch an invasion into Mesopotamia, and they quickly approach Baghdad, which is one of the major cities here. I'm not sure if Baghdad is here in real life, but we're just going to assume this city is called Baghdad. And we also see special Egyptian forces move in the desert, and they launch an invasion of Qatar, capturing this major city right here, and approaching the capital city. Back over here to Greece, we see them manage to make a landing down here and retake this major city, and this is kind of confusing, like, why is Egypt going for this area over here? And it kind of becomes clear why they do this when they move forces away from Istanbul. The Greeks launch a massive offensive. This had been a kind of distraction, and in fact most of the army here is actually just a fake army. It's just a bunch of civilians dressed up in army clothes, so these guys are quickly pushed back. But the damage up here is done, as Egypt is pushed back a lot, and even Turkey manages to meet up with them. However, Egypt is not just going to fall back that easily. They launch a second invasion quickly after moving these troops back up here to recapture this city, and then in full force they manage to launch a pretty impressive encirclement of these Greek forces. However, most of them are able to retreat by sea. From here we see the full-on invasion of Turkey by the Egyptians. This major city is captured, and we can see that the Egyptians are attempting to encircle this large area of Turkey right here. Moving back over to Mesopotamia, we see a lot of these cities be captured. However, in Qatar over here, we do see a actual pushback take place, and even some Qatar troops are even moving towards Egypt through the desert. These guys will kind of just make a bit of an offensive and kind of just camp out here in this Egyptian area. Now, moving back over here to Sudan, we have, after some continued guerrilla warfare takes place, we have like a full-on sort of revolution, I guess, take place, as a puppet government had been set up in here when it was fully invaded, and this guy kind of just breaks away from Egypt. This is a big threat to them, as now they have to move a lot more troops down here. However, back over here to Turkey, we see something pretty concerning happen. The Egyptians managed to complete their encirclement of the capital of Turkey. And from here, when Egyptian forces move in, it is looking increasingly like they're about to win this war. But just as it looks like this is going to be a victory for the Egyptians, something happens. The Square Alliance joins the war and they declare war on Egypt. Now, the Square Alliance, this is a Carthaginian-led alliance, and they have been feeling very threatened by Egypt in these past few episodes, and recently they have even discovered plans of an Egyptian invasion into their nation, and that was kind of the final straw. And when this war happened, they were just waiting for a time to join the war, and now seeing that Egypt is looking like it's going to win, they decide it's time to act. And Carthaginian forces will move into Egypt rather. So these forces quickly move around into this Libyan area. Egypt was absolutely not expecting this, so this area is going to quickly fall. To add on to this, we even see some Ukrainian forces be sent down here to help out Turkey. This helps alleviate a lot of stress from this area and forces the encirclement to stop. And these forces are now pushed back. Over here in Mesopotamia, we see slight pushbacks take place. And in Qatar, these forces that had been camping out in the desert finally move in, capturing this major city right here, and quickly moving towards this next one, taking it as well. And this area is kind of mostly desert, so they move towards the coastal area where a lot of people actually live, and then they stop because they can't really go further. Over here in Sudan, we see the country be fully liberated, and they take back this coastal land, and then they begin to move up, taking this major city right here. However, back over here, it's not going all too well for the Square Alliance, as Egypt, after organising their military, does make a slight pushback. Their main goal is to defend their major area, which is this area right here. This is very important to Egypt. It's like their core land, and they don't want these Carthaginian forces to get anywhere near it. At this point, we see Caucasia launch an invasion into Egypt. They haven't really done much this war, they've mainly just been holding on their border, and they will now launch their invasion, and this kind of makes a very bad logistical situation right here, forcing these troops to retreat. To add on to this, we see something similar to this happen in Mesopotamia when Mesopotamian forces move up in an attempt to encircle these Egyptian forces, and this kind of leads to a full-on retreat out of the country. These troops will then give chase to the Egyptians, and this major city right here will be captured. And next up, a pretty big event is happening. In the Anatolian area, the Greek Navy and the Ukrainian Navy, which these two are now working together fully, Ukraine is now fully into this war, they launch a massive naval assault on the, this part of Anatolia, and quickly move in. This overwhelms the Egyptian forces, who are forced out, And after a little bit of fighting, we actually see them fully be pushed out of the peninsula. This is a very big victory for the Greeks and the Anatolians, and these guys who were previously enemies are now working together very well. Cyprus is then recaptured by the Greeks, and a full-on assault is launched down into Syria. And the famed Egyptian military, who was once seen as the strongest in the world, is now completely outnumbered, and they are fighting too many fronts. It's just going really bad for them. This is like a 5-front war for the Egyptians. It's kind of just way too much for them. The Sudanese will invade up into their once land, and as this area hadn't kind of been fully assimilated yet, we see some Sudanese rebellions take place in this major city, and this encircles some Egyptian forces. From here, now with support from Mesopotamia, we see Qatar launch their invasion of the populated coastal areas, and this goes very well, and an invasion up takes place. From here, the square team break through the front lines as Moroccan and even Roman reinforcements have arrived. The Romans are not in this war, they're kind of just sending troops here to help out their ally of Carthage, and they're kind of just volunteering. This major city will be captured, and this is very bad for the Egyptians, as this was kind of like they had set up a wall from this major city to protect their core land. And after this, a complete breakthrough happens. The Caucasians then continue their invasion, and the Egyptians are ordered to fully retreat out of all occupied areas, as they are kind of trying to protect their homeland. This leads to something like this happening, with the Egyptians now being pushed back fully to here. And this does sort of have an effect. We see the square team sort of be pushed back. However, then their wall of defense when they meet the city kind of works against them, because the Carthaginians are now using it to stop the Egyptians from moving into their occupied land. Over here, we see the Turkish completely break through this front line, and this is not only the Turkish, this is like all of these guys fighting. And the Sudanese are going to continue on with their onslaught. Now, at this point, the people of Egypt are kind of seeing the writing on the wall, but their absolute monarch, as you can see here, if I can get the ideologies layer up, they are an absolute monarchy, and their monarch, they do not want to stop the war. They are conscripting more and more people to go and fight, and they are starting to lose a lot of popularity. And this actually causes a full-on rebellion to take place, as a lot of these Egyptian peoples who do not want to be fighting this losing war will rebel away, and kind of the only exception for that is the capital area, where most of the king's loyal supporters lie. These guys will then quickly join up with Carthage, and these guys with Qatar. And from here, this land down here falls, and on the 17th of September 985, Turkish forces will enter into the capital of Egypt, kill the king, and Egypt will surrender. So that was a very big war. That was kind of the first major big war of this series, and Egypt has just been absolutely blasted, so maybe them being such an aggressive nation was very bad for them. But anyway, let's go ahead and have a look at this peace treaty. So, in this peace treaty here, we can see that Egypt has been absolutely, just destroyed from this war. They have lost most of their land, so let's just have a bit of an overview. So, first of all, a few new countries have been made out of Egypt. First of all, we have this Palestinian, I guess, or Jordanese country, I'll just call it Jordan. We have a new Libyan country, we have this new Arabian country, and we have this country that is a Qatar puppet. The countries that got land out of Egypt, we see Turkey got a bit of land, Mesopotamia got some land, Caucasia got some land, but they only got one province, and Sudan, they got the most land out of this. They gain all of their former land and some. Taking a look at the ideologies layer, because there's also stuff to go over here, we see that Egypt has now become a dictatorship. The rebellion that took over, they were led by one person, and he has set up a dictatorship with himself at its centre. Most of these new countries are just constitutional monarchies. An interesting thing to note here is before the war, Sudan was a dictatorship, but when they kind of re-emerged as guerrilla fighters, they would set themselves up as a democracy. And this country is a democracy because it has a parliament, even though it's kind of just ruled by these guys. But that is it for that aspect, and there are some things that happen straight away after the war, and that is kind of the disbandment of this anti-Egyptian alliance, and that is going to be the Sudanese country leaves it, the Caucasian country leaves it, and the Qatar country leaves it, and that only leaves it to be Mesopotamia and Turkey. So yeah, that was a pretty big war, and that is going to have a lot of changes over the whole world. And the first change that's going to have is the power rankings, because now we're going to be doing the power rankings. So, at number one, the current strongest country in the world, it's going to be the Baikal country, and that is what it is. This I shouldn't have called it Mongolia because it is the Baikal country because of Lake Baikal. So, with them sort of meeting up with the old world, I'm just going to call it the old world, even though it's not really the old world. They have now the technology and the strength of the old world, so that really helps them out. At number two, taking a pretty big leap, is actually going to be Sweden. Sweden has, after that war, completely restructured their country, and now they are a very big military power. At number three, it's going to be Greece. Pretty self-explanatory there, they were number two before. At number four, it is going to be France. They haven't really done much, but they have stayed as a strong country. At number 6 is Indonesia. Similar to the Mongolians, now meeting up with the old world, they have gained a lot of strength and technology. Number 6 is going to be Ukraine. Number 7 is going to be Carthage. Number 8 is going to be Rome. Number 9 is going to be Central China. And I think at number 10, it's going to be... who would be number 10? I feel like even though they got absolutely destroyed in that war, I feel like Egypt might still be up there. I tell you what, I'm going to give it to the Dutch. The Dutch have kind of re-emerged as a somewhat strong power, although they are still quite weak. So these are the new top 10 rankings. So at number 1 we have the Baikal Empire, number 2 we have Sweden, number 3 we have Greece, number 4 we have France, number 5 is Indonesia, number 6 is Ukraine, number 7 is Carthage, number 8 is Rome, number 9 is Central China, and number 10 is the Dutch. So now that we've got that out of the way, we are going to be looking at something pretty major happening, and that is the Baikal country continuing on their conquest. So as we know, these guys believe that they were sent by God out west to discover these false religious peoples, to change them to their religion, this religion right here, and they're currently focused on these guys. So the Baikalians will be converting forcefully these Caspians to their religion, and any people who refuse are just exiled from the country or killed. And this was happening while this big Egyptian war took place, and eventually we see it be pushed fully out of their country. Very bad for them. To add on to this, the Mongolians are now going to, I call them the Mongolians again. They are going to be expanding outwards, and now a lot of these countries are getting very scared because now they are linked up with these guys, and that is of course going to be the Crimeans and the Green Russians. The Baikalians will also be expanding a bit down south, and I think that's going to be their quest for today. But next up we're going to be seeing some colonization of land, and that is going to be by the Russians. So the Russians are going to be taking more of this central area over here, and they will be following their treaty that they have with the Green Team, where they have to go past this line and they can't claim any land south of this line, and they will be taking all of this land. But next up we're going to be seeing a pretty small war take place, and that is going to be the sort of struggle for power that we see over here. So when this Lime team collapsed, we see these two other countries come out of it, and these guys are battling for influence over this main green country, and the dark purple country has just won. They managed to place a member of the dictator's family as president of this country, and they are going to be wasting no time declaring war on this northern blue country. Their capital will really quickly fall. It's unfortunate for them. All their major cities are right on the border of other countries. After this, they are going to be completely cut in two. And we kind of see the Ukrainians sneakily get in on this to try and take some land over here. And this country is then going to fall. So in this peace treaty here, we can see that the land has been divided up. We see Ukraine gets this portion of land right here that they took, and the rest is united under the Green Team, who they're going to move their capital to a bit more of a secure location, the old capital of that country over there, the blue one. But now we're going to be seeing a little bit more exploration happen. But first, there is just something I want to talk about. So now with Egypt gone as a country, there is not really any more incentive to move around Africa to trade with India, as now they can have free trade. The reason they were going around Africa before is to bypass the Egyptian routes, which the Egyptians were heavily taxing, and now because of this they don't really have the need to go around Africa anymore, because once again they can just trade through the Middle East, so we kind of see the exploration stop. But yeah, the final event of this video, exploration, that is going to be in Greenland, as the Swedish are going to continue exploring. As well as this, they will be fully taking over Iceland, as well as Svalbard, even though it's extremely cold up there. But that is actually going to be it for this video. If you did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.